Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Triple Four Foxtrot. My name is Don Everett Smith Jr. I am your host, and we are with our storyteller, Don Everett Smith Sr. Dad, how are you today?
Fair to middling.
Same here. Been fair to middling too. I had a wacky week, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but I work as a substitute teacher, and I've received threats from students this week. That was pretty interesting. And the week ended with, if I can't really see it and it doesn't do it justice, but I closed my finger in a metal door and it squished it. It was like somebody took a pair of pliers and just squeezed and tried to turn. There was so much I wanted to say at that moment, but because I was in the office at school and there were children around and there were principals and other people like that around, I had to just bite my tongue. And it was just, you turn into Ned Flanders in situations like that where you're going, golly gee willikers, Dad, burn it, and all kinds of other things.
By any chance, do you recall when you were a kid and you slammed your hand in the car door?
Oh, I remember that very well. It was my middle finger on my left hand, and it was like, and then Mom. I think the funniest thing about that is Mom panicking and crying and trying to get the door open and everything, and my finger just got stuck there. Oh gosh, that was painful. Yeah. Let me ask this. Listen, folks, let me just say this to anybody watching and reading. We're all about setups. We're all about storytellings. But our segues stink. So just live with it. So, Dad, since I hurt my finger, can you recall a time that you ever got hurt? And maybe we could get a good story about this.
Me hurt?
Maybe something that involved...
Doesn't sound very likely. Let me ask you a question, though. Do you normally wear the glasses when we chat?
Well, it depends. I can take them off if you need.
You look better with them off. The only reason I say that is because your ring light was glaring off your right eye. You made you look in something other. I don't know, but
that's okay.
Yeah. Now, are you talking about the time I rode my tricycle down the steps and busted my teeth out, or maybe when I got hit in the neck with a 4x4?
And it was that one, and so it was that case. And my thing is that when I think 4x4, I think some sort of mechanical vehicular thing that was hanging in a tree.
Right?
But I don't think you're talking about that.
Well, 4x4 refers to a piece of wood, 4 inches cube, and it was about 5 feet long. That's back when the 4x4 was really 4x4 and not 3.5 by 3.5. But anyway, whatever they are now, I don't know. But lumber started shrinking there
right
some years ago, and the 2x4 is now 1.5 by 3.5. But at any rate, they had this 4x4 that was about, 5 feet long or so, and the older kids had put this thing up in a barely tall tree, and they wedged it in the branches, and they used it for a launching pad on a rope swing that they had tied in even higher up in the tree. And I was too little to climb up the tree, but the older kids did it. And the object of what they did was swinging out over the street. It was one of the busier streets in the neighborhood. It was called Franklin Avenue. But at the end of Franklin Avenue, there was a industrial equipment mover, and he had these low boy trailer trucks. And the low boys, they had a very low trailer. And so these guys, when a low boy would come, they'd wait for it to get by, and as the cab went by, they'd swing out over it, and the object was to swing over the trailer of the truck. But at any rate, they were doing their swinging and all, and the low boys came by fairly. Obviously, they were empty because they were on their way to move a piece of equipment for somebody. Oh, Lord. I happened to be walking under it, and all of a sudden, I got a really strange feeling that I needed to duck. And, nobody told me to duck or anything. I just felt like I needed to duck, and I did. And that 4x4 came down and landed across my neck. Now, if I hadn't ducked, I guess it would hit me right square in the top of the head. And
Well, that would have probably caused more damage that way.
I think so. My nickname will probably be Woody if that had happened. But at any rate,
So
hurt
now,
really bad. I went home, I went to bed, and it was hurting. But I was afraid of doctors. I didn't want to go
right.
to a doctor. And I believe I was in first grade at that time. And I had to get up and go to school the next morning, and I was still hurting. But what the end result was, I wasn't able to turn my head to the left. I could not turn to the left at all for several years. And in fact, the cure was almost as bad as the cough. So
Oh gosh.
Hannibal
Well,
sneaking in here.
actually, that's Xena. Or sorry, Siren. It's my other girl. Hannibal is next to me on the chair. That's why you'll see me make faces, because he needs his nails clipped and he decides he wants to give me a hug.
Yeah.
And then Siren, who is blocking things. If I had my glasses on, you could probably see her reflection in it. No, you couldn't. All
I
right.
just see this
Now,
light.
let me go back to this.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what it is that I am picturing the road. I'm picturing the road as a regular road, but considering this is Virginia we're talking about, and it's a lot of swampy, somewhat marshy, piney type of area. Would you say that that's or was it a
Regular suburban road. It was.
okay?
It could get swampy because it had a really high water table. And in fact, well, let me go on with this other that because my neck was hurting pretty bad. Eventually, the pain went away, but still for years, I couldn't look left like that. I had to
What would happen?
the body.
No, if someone said, "Hey, Don, look at this,"
Yeah,
and would your body stop? Would it just stop? Much the same way I can't pull my arm around like an action figure.
I physically could not turn my head like that. I could turn it to the right, no problem, but I could not turn it to the left. It was just there was a stop in there or something, and
right.
I'd have to go to. So it was some years later, and we took a little day trip to Yorktown, and we were visiting York battlefield, where basically the conclusion of the Revolutionary War.
That's where they surrendered.
They had those fortifications all around. They called them redoubts, and they were just big ridges of dirt they'd hauled in to hide behind, basically. At any rate,
right.
I was on one of those, and they were grass covered, and I started running down, and they were steep. So it was like one of these things where you start running, you can't stop running. And as I ran down one, I stepped in a hole, and I couldn't even see it was there because the grass was even, but there was a hole, and my foot got caught on it, and I went flying through the air and landed head first, right smack on the top of my head. And when I did, I heard and felt a big pop in my neck.
Oh gosh,
it hurt really bad, and I was afraid. I was hurt bad at first, but you could move, and nothing was numb or anything. So I just got up, and it was hurting really bad. But eventually, it started to go away, and from that moment on, I could turn my head to the left again. It was like a chiropractor in a can type of a thing. Instant, what do you call it, adjustment?
Right. See, now the only downside to that is now everybody thinks, hey, you know what? Next time I have some neck pain, I'll go running down Yorktown, trip, bang my head. And then you'll sit there and start. And then this is just straight up medical advice that you would see on Gilligan's Island or the Flintstones. A crack on the head makes somebody forget who they are, and then another crack on the head turns them back to normal.
But you raised an interesting question, I think, when you mentioned about swamp area. It wasn't swamp area, but like I said, it had a high water table. But during the dry season, we had this lot. It was a city block that was wooded lot. And this old lady owned it. And every time I saw her, she appeared to be drunk. But we used to play on her lot all the time. And one of the things we like to do was big bunkers. So bunkers, we would dig these bunkers and
bunkers. I would Are you digging in the ground and then?
Archie bunker. I mean, but anyway, we would dig these holes and then we put wooden planks over the top of it and then cover that with dirt. And then we would have a tunnel that went to the bunker, and it would be hidden. You'd put bushes and all, so it was like a secret hideout. But then rainy weather would start up, and our bunkers used to always fill up with water, and they'd be ruined because there was nothing you could do with them after that, and it took months for the things to dry out. But we would get down in these bunkers with a candle and snacks, and we would have club meetings, and we would plan stuff. One of the things we planned was bicycle races around that lot and through the streets and all. And the streets, they weren't regular asphalt; they were tar with gravel.
Right.
And all the intersections, they had loose gravel. So we used to race around these, and we'd go around blind curves. Fortunately, there wasn't much traffic, especially during the daytime when all the dads were at work. So there wasn't a lot of traffic, but we were fortunate we never came to grips with a car. But there was one race in particular. I had my old Huffy out there, and I was going like crazy. And I developed this really slick technique for going around curves. And what I would do is, when you're holding the handlebars,
right,
yes, I would let go of and then I'd move the other hand over to it, and I would step off the bike, and I would lean the bike over to go around the curve, and I could go into the curve full speed and lay the bicycle down.
Oh my gosh.
It would just go a natural curve when it was laid over like that. So I was doing that one time, and I went around this curve, and I sort of hiked out like it was on a Hobie cat or almost. And I went through with this loose gravel, and so the bicycle just slid out from under me. And I went flying through that gravel, and gravel was going every which way. And I got gravel blasted. My shirt was all torn to shreds and everything. I had
gosh,
cuts from that gravel. My arms and hands and my chest just covered with cuts from that. That sort of ended that maneuver.
Right. And that was how you became known as the human scab.
But we used to race through that. There were paths through that lady's lot and the wooded lot. We used to race through those paths and everything.
Now, when you say the wooded lot or that lot, how big was the lot? Was it about as big as?
It was a square block.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah, it ran from street to street. The lengthwise, it didn't run. It ran what would have been the equivalent of another street, about the same width. So it was pretty much a square, but you had streets on three sides of the lot, and the fourth side there was just more lots.
Right.
Some of them they built on, and they just people would use them for gardens or.
Right.
So.
Right. Now, that incident where you're leaning on the bike like that, you'll see that in motorcycle racing where you've got a motorcycle would look like this coming at you, and then they kind of lean into it.
They lean, but I was actually getting off the thing and leaning. I'd switch hands, so my right hand would be on the left handle grip, and I would lean the bicycle as far to the right as I could, and I would basically be hiked out, having my weight over there, so I could carry more speed around the corner. But the problem is it did not coexist that well with gravel.
Holy cow. And then you know what the antidote to all that was? Bactine.
Oh, Bactine. Oh, the no sting Bactine. Let me tell you something about no sting Bactine.
That's a lie.
Well, no, most of the time it didn't. But if you had a friction burn, that stuff would set you on fire. Well, it set me on fire, but
it happened to me. I slid down a tree one time with bark, and everything hurt. And then you guys put Bactine on me, and oh my gosh, you might as well just set my legs on fire. Holy cow!
Well, road rash, it was not good for that, really. I don't think so, because I had a lot of other experiences with it. So just a cut, Bactine didn't burn. But the fact I had the dermatologist the other day froze something on my back, and it's in the process of falling off, so it's kind of sore back there. So your mom was spraying some Bactine on me, So
of course,
it was
mom
good
was.
for that. That didn't hurt. So.
Right. Now, going back to let's go back to the original story about how you told how you're walking along the street and get nailed in the back of the neck with a 4x4. How old were you when this happened?
6 years old. I was in first grade when that.
Now, how old were you when you tripped and fell at the Battle of Yorktown?
9 or 10.
So for 4 years, you're going like this.
3 or 4. I don't remember exactly.
And now, how old are you when this bicycle thing happened?
Oh, that's a little bit later. That's probably 11, 12, 13 in that range.
Okay, but either way, by then your neck was working fine. You probably wouldn't have tried that little thing, that little stunt, if your neck couldn't work to the left. Am I correct?
No, you're not. It wouldn't have mattered.
You still would have done it.
I would have done it anyway. It wouldn't have made any difference. You come up with these great ideas. You can carry more speed through the turn. It's like, doesn't matter.
Your last words should have been, how are these not my last words? So
there were a few times when all I can say is, you're lucky to be here.
Thank you for that. And so when it hit the back of your neck, it's just kind of like something inside you just said, duck. And you put your arms up and then smack down on the back.
No, I didn't put my arms. I just ducked. My hands were more or less in front of me. And it just landed right across my neck. It was sort of at an angle. So my back absorbed part of it, but my neck got the brunt of it.
Right.
But it's what it is.
Unbelievable. And have you talked to any of dermatologists, chiropractors about that?
Oh, I can tell you a story about a chiropractor.
No, I'm asking, did you ever ask any chiropractors about
that? No, it's never. Now, what I have told chiropractors is, don't adjust the neck. Please don't adjust the neck. I'm a little bit skittish about the neck.
Right.
I heard it once, and I just assumed you not pop it. I've had it pop before, and it didn't work. It didn't come out well.
That'll do it. I still think that's just absolutely amazing. The part I find interesting is that whole something said you need to duck. And I, being really interested in the unusual and crazy things like that, firmly could have believed.
That's not the only time something
that you've had something that we'll have to get into that the next time. But
remind me next time, and I'll tell you about when my best friend had a dream about me.
Is this deep?
That'll curl your socks a little bit. Curls mine a little bit.
Unbelievable. I will definitely.
That was about 5th grade. I don't know if we'll get to the 5th grade next time, but
no. But either way, we can talk about it. Now, the thing that I find interesting is, now going back to the other thing that we were talking about, the plot of land that was in this lot that you guys were digging. How deep were the holes that you were digging to make bunkers and stuff?
I'm going to say about 4 feet deep, 3.5, 4 feet. They weren't real deep, but we weren't real big munchkins either. So
right.
Probably about 4 feet, and they weren't very big. I mean, you could get like 4 in there and sitting around your.
Oh gosh, you lit a fire under there.
Once or twice, but that didn't turn out well either.
Yeah. Well, did you do anything to brace it up?
Yeah, well, we just laid boards across the top, so basically it was just on level ground.
Oh, okay.
And you would cover that with dirt, and then you cover that with leaves and limbs and everything to make it a secret. Of course, we didn't need to make it a secret. The old lady never came out there. One time, she even offered me $1 to clean all the bushes and trees off that city block. $1, a whole $1. I said, wow, a whole $1. I'll get back to you.
Them's rich people monies now. Right. This was probably a lady from the she must have been in her 60s, probably born in the 1890s when $1.
She was dirt, but
yeah.
So how old she was, I couldn't tell you, except that she looked very old and very drunk.
Yeah, pay you $1 to clean the whole area. Watch out, there's some big gophers around there too.
Gophers.
Yeah. Wood out.
Yeah.
And they started a campfire. So, but my gosh, so. Did anybody spend the night down there, or was it just a straight up?
No. But we at least had enough common sense not to stay in that hole too long. Serious trouble, even though it wasn't very deep.
Right.
And
Right.
typically, when it rained, they did collapse. So.
That'll do it. That's crazy. So, well, moral of the story with all of this is, if you're going to play with wood, please be very careful, because somewhere or another, playing with wood and playing with holes in the ground can have both positive and negative effects. So,
Yeah, it should probably come with a disclaimer: don't try this at home.
yeah, exactly.
Digging holes in your backyard.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is that you're putting wood up in the trees, and make sure that you're the ones to take it down, because that could get you sued. That's all I can say. Those kids that did it in this litigious society, they would have gotten into a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah, but different things were really different.
Oh yeah, yeah. The thing was, and the other thing that's so crazy about this is that 4x4 piece of wood, it wasn't like hammered into the tree. It was like wedged in the
Yeah, it
tree,
was just
right?
wedged in, and they kicked it loose. Like I said, I don't know if it was on purpose or accident. You don't put anything past these kids. I mean, they're really cruel at times when they wanted to be, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
it didn't matter. I mean, what was done, So.
Yeah, for the kids.
Well, they were like probably from fifth or sixth grade up through ninth grade, something like that. There's a bunch of kids in the area, so I just happened to be of the neighborhood.
Right, right.
Had its advantages sometimes.
Yeah. Now, how did he swing on? Was it just regular like
Just a
rope?
rope. Just a rope.
Yeah.
It was big rope almost. It was probably a inch and a quarter, inch and a half diameter rope. So it was very substantial rope.
Hannibal. Crazy cat. Yeah, and you'll get a nice shot of his butt for the rest of the broadcast. So but the thing was, it's just I can imagine that, like, you think that some of those drivers would have said something and been like, hey, one of these days, one of those kids are gonna swing across the cross and get themselves hurt or something like that.
Well, I don't know that they ever actually saw them, because the only thing they would ever be able to see is maybe a fleeting glance in the rearview mirror as they swung past. I don't think they really cared.
Right, right. They were just probably, well, one of these days, I'm surprised that those kids didn't end up in the trunk of a car or in the back of the truck or something.
Well, I say it's a very low trailer, so there wasn't any danger of that, as long as they didn't have any equipment on it, of course, but empty coming and going, because they were sent out to move a piece of equipment, maybe a bulldozer or something. And they
Right.
houses. They would use those big low boy trucks to relocate a house.
Oh, okay. No, but what I was thinking is like one of those kids just accidentally lets go and then splat right in the back of the truck if that happened.
Yeah, not a real possibility, but I never heard of it happening. So,
Yeah.
I mean, our next door neighbor, when I was very small, he was he was probably in his early teens, but he and a friend of his drowned in a pit where they it's like where they dig sand out for construction or whatever, and then they'd fill up with water, and they drowned in that. I mean, our door neighbor on the other side cut his hand off in a lawnmower. Yeah, story there. We had to bury parts of his hand.
We've got some good setups for next week. So yeah, mark down. We got the hand, we've got the dream about from your best friend, and then we've got, I guess, other things so that we can talk about. So anyway,
one thing leads to another, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, Dad, it is the 30-minute mark, and I know you've got things to do, and I've got things to do. But what can I say? This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Today. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, well, that's the whole fun, and I'd encourage person to legacy project. I'm just leaving these stories. Yeah. And the original intent was just to write them down and leave them for your brother to read one time. Because right now you're not at the age where you're really interested, but there'll come a time when you'll say, man, I wish I could talk to the old geezer one more time, the way I felt. And that's why I started basically doing this. But there's lots of people doing. I belong to a legacy writing club, and that's what we do is we topic and we apply it to our lives. I got a bunch of topics here written for our legacy writing group. So I would encourage
Right.
people that if it's yourself, write it down, or you can record it, or you can do what we're doing here and just
Share
have
those
a good
stories.
time with it.
Exactly. Everybody, don't forget, if you enjoyed what you heard today, leave us a comment down below. We respond. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And also, if you like history and you like good writing, check out my 2 books, Images of America, Hawthorne, New Jersey, and The Goffle Road Murders of Passaic County. The true story of the first murder that ever happened in Passaic County, New Jersey, its connections all the way up to William McKinley and Teddy Roosevelt. True story.
Wow,
So, oh yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. And Dad, again, thank you for telling us a great story. And thank you so much for taking the time to do that.
well, I had a blast, and that's a fun thing to do, a fun project. I think I had no idea it would be this much fun.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And this, on behalf of myself and Hannibal, we want to say thank you so much for joining us. Say bye, Hannibal.
Hannibal the Super Kid.
Yeah, Hannibal did not look happy. So anyway, thanks
He
very
doesn't
much.
have a red hat like we do.
Exactly. We'll do something about that. Hannibal, you want a red cap? We'll get you one. So anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone, and take care and have a great day.